the day after the imperial physician declared that pigsty, the great general guarding the northern frontier, would never father a child, my elder sister sent the marriage contract back to the Pei family in the middle of the night. She broke off the engagement with astonishing speed. Even the old yellow dog outside our gate, a creature too slow to catch a chicken on an ordinary day, barked twice in shock when it saw the carriage carrying the contract away. Gu Qingwen knelt before father, tears clinging beautifully to her lashes. Father, it is not that I despise General Pei, but I am the legitimate eldest daughter of this family. I carry the responsibility of continuing my husband's bloodline. Since General Pei has suffered such a grievous injury, I cannot gamble away my entire life. I sat to one side, eating an osmanthus cake and listening with great attention. Translated into plain language, her speech meant this. A husband did not need affection, but he needed heirs. He did not need to come home, but he needed to continue the family line. As long as he could father children, even a man shaped like a winter melon was open to negotiation. I was filled with solemn admiration. My sister's method of choosing a husband bore a remarkable resemblance to selecting a breeding boar. Father, Gu Zhenshin, looked as black as though he had just crawled out from beneath a cooking pot. This marriage was arranged by the late emperor. Pei Zhai was gravely wounded while fighting for the realm. If you abandon him now, what will become of the Gu family's honor? Gu Qingwen sobbed. If father values the family's honor so greatly, then let second sister marry him. The entire hall fell silent. Half an osmanthus cake was still between my teeth when every eye in the room turned toward me. I slowly swallowed it. Excellent. I had been sitting peacefully at home, and a marriage had fallen straight out of the sky. When Gu Qingwen saw that I did not speak, she assumed I was frightened. Her eyes reddened as she said softly, "If sister is unwilling, I will not force her. Still, the Pei family is powerful beyond measure. Even without children, marrying into that family would hardly be a loss." How fascinating. She was shoving the man she no longer wanted into my arms, yet she still managed to look as though she had discovered a tremendous bargain on my behalf. Her skin was so thick that, if pasted over a window in winter, it would surely block every draft. Who said I was unwilling? I brushed the crumbs from my fingers and stood. I will marry him. Father's eyes widened until they were larger than the bronze rings on our doors. All three of my brothers shouted at once. No. The teacups trembled from the force of their voices. I was deeply moved. They were indeed my blood brothers. They showed me no mercy when stealing my snacks, but at a crucial moment, they still knew how to protect me. My eldest brother, Gu Chengjun, spoke gravely. Chang Ying, marriage is no game. Pei Zhaoi's condition is unclear. If you marry him and never have a child of your own. Eldest brother. I interrupted him with great seriousness. Do I look like someone deeply concerned with preserving a bloodline? Everyone looked at me. My third brother, Gu Cheng'an, answered with painful honesty. You are more concerned about whether the kitchen is making sweet and sour fish today. I nodded. No one understood a sister better than her brother. Gu Qingwen said gently, Sister is still young. She does not understand the suffering of having no children. You are older, sister. You must understand it very well. I smiled at her. In that case, why did you secretly keep the 2 chests of southern pearls, the pair of jade scepters, and the 6 bolts of cloud brocade sent by the Pei family? Gu Qingwen's sobbing stopped at once. I drew a list from my sleeve and unfolded it at my leisure. The Pei family sent 128 chests of betrothal gifts. Last night, sister returned only 124. You ended the engagement so cleanly, yet your attachment to the gifts remained so profound. Could it be that all your affection for General Pei now resides within those pearls? My second brother, Gu Cheng's, failed to restrain himself and burst out laughing. Gu Qingwen's face shifted from green to white. I merely forgot. Is that so? I do not believe you. I handed the list to the steward. Please go to my sister's courtyard and retrieve every item belonging to the Pei family. Since she refuses to marry him, she should not reject the man while keeping his property. A person may change her mind, but she should not change it with someone else's gifts tucked into her pockets. Father slammed his palm against the table. Do as Chang Ying says. Gu Qingwen fled with her face covered in shame. I watched her hurried retreat with considerable satisfaction. She had not left empty-handed after all. She had carried away an entire hall's laughter. That afternoon, Pei Zhai came in person. He wore fitted black robes. He was tall and straight-backed, with cold, severe features. When he stepped into the main hall, it felt as though a gust from the northern frontier had followed him inside. He was indeed intimidating. He was also undeniably handsome. I swiftly calculated the matter in my head. He commanded an army, possessed a vast fortune, had a spotless household, and was extremely pleasing to look at. He might not speak much, but silence was still better than a mouth full of filth. No matter how I counted it, this marriage was not a loss. Pei Zhai looked directly at me. Second, Miss Gu, you do not need to marry me for the sake of your family's honor. I was equally direct. General Pei, you do not need to feel inferior because of an imperial physician's nonsense. A chorus of sharp breaths filled the hall. One of his eyebrows moved slightly. I walked 2 steps closer and held out my hand. Give me your hand. All 3 of my brothers inhaled at once. They looked like men who had just watched the cabbage they had carefully raised for 17 years pull up its own roots and run willingly toward a wild boar. Pei Zhai, however, placed his hand in mine. I rested 2 fingers against his pulse and examined it carefully. Then I looked toward the old injury on his lower abdomen. His pulse was cold and weak, but nowhere near the point of infertility. More strangely, the cold within his body did not appear to come from the wound itself. It felt like the result of medicine accumulated over many years. I released his wrist and looked up at him. The imperial physician said your foundation was destroyed. Yes. Nonsense. The hall fell silent again. Father closed his eyes. He was probably reminding himself that I was his own child and could not be returned to wherever I had come from. Pei Zhai did not become angry. He studied me. Can you treat it? Whether I can treat it depends on examining the medicine used on your wound, but one thing is certain. I gave him a sincere smile. You injured your waist and abdomen. You did not injure 18 generations of the Pei family's ancestral bloodline. The tips of his ears turned red before my eyes. I was delighted. The great general had killed countless enemies, yet he seemed remarkably defenseless against teasing from a young woman. Excellent. Married life had suddenly become even more promising. My wedding to Pei Zhai was arranged with remarkable speed. The Pei family was not the impatient party. I was simply worried that once Gu Qingwen had calmed down, she might realize she had discarded a golden husband and climb out of bed in the middle of the night to steal the marriage contract back. I was not afraid of her succeeding. Still, even when a fly failed to eat a cake, the sight of it crawling across the surface ruined one's appetite. On the day of my marriage, I took 80 chests of dowry with me. 40 held estates and shop deeds. 20 contained gold, silver, and jewels. The remaining 20 were packed entirely with medicinal herbs and medical texts. My third brother stared at the 20 chests of medicine with a complicated expression. Other women bring embroidered quilts when they marry. You are bringing 30 caddies of Coptes root. I stroked my chin. One must always be prepared. If my husband refuses to behave, I will make him drink it for 3 days. Pei Zhai happened to reach the doorway at that moment. His footsteps visibly paused. I pretended not to notice. A man's pride was like thin porcelain. Occasionally, a considerate wife ought to protect it. Princess Anyang attended the wedding banquet. She wore brilliant red court robes and enough jeweled hairpins to resemble a walking jewelry shop. The moment she entered, she ordered her servants to carry in a statue of the child-giving Guanyin. I heard that General Pei is physically inconvenienced, so I specially prepared this gift. It may not prove useful, but at least it represents my goodwill. The expressions of the guests shifted. This was no wedding gift. She had carved the words, without an heir, into stone and carried them directly into my wedding hall. Pei Zheai's face darkened. I placed a hand over his. It would frighten the guests if my husband drew his sword on the first day of our marriage. Such a mild little confrontation could be left to me. Smiling, I ordered a maid to bring forward a Western mirror, nearly half a person tall. Your Highness has been thoughtful. I have also prepared a return gift. Princess Anyang frowned. What is this? A mirror of the heart. I spoke with complete seriousness. If you look into it every morning, you will be able to see whether you have come to offer congratulations or merely to make yourself unpleasant. This mirror is extremely precious. It is especially suitable for people who possess no understanding of their own behavior. Several guests lowered their heads to hide their laughter. Princess Anyang flushed crimson. Gu Chengying, how dare you humiliate me? You misunderstand me. I widened my eyes in surprise. I merely gave you a mirror. Why did you feel humiliated the moment you looked into it? Could there be something in the reflection that the rest of us cannot see? This time, even the palace eunuch sent by the emperor turned his head away. His shoulders shook like a tree in an autumn wind. Pei Zheai spoke coolly. Escort her out. Princess Anyang still wished to argue, but the Pei guards had already invited both her and the child-giving Guanyin to leave. I watched her retreating figure with genuine regret. It was a terrible waste that such thick skin could not be turned into a shield. That night, red wedding candles burned brightly in the bridal chamber. Pei Zheai sat beside the bed, while I removed my phoenix coronet and pulled a case of silver needles from one of my dowry chests. He looked at the needle case and was silent for a moment. You intend to begin treatment tonight. An illness does not wait. I sat beside him. Take off your clothes. He did not move. I raised my eyes. Are you embarrassed? No. Then take them off. You bared your chest on battlefields while soldiers bandaged your wounds, yet now you are guarding your virtue before your own wife. Pei Zheai pressed his lips together. The tips of his ears turned red again. At last, he loosened his robes. Candlelight fell across his chest and lower abdomen. Several scars crossed his skin. The worst ran from his side to his lower belly. I pressed gently around the wound with my fingertips. His entire body went rigid. Does it hurt? No. Then why are you as stiff as an ancestral stone tablet? He did not answer. A bold suspicion entered my mind. Perhaps he was not in pain. Perhaps he was ticklish. The great general was ticklish. If that secret spread, the enemy armies of the north might abandon their swords and bring feathers instead. Out of great kindness, I did not pursue the matter. I inserted 12 needles. When the 7th needle entered its point, his face remained expressionless, but his right hand quietly clenched the bedsheet. By the time the 12th needle was placed, 5 deep creases had appeared beneath his fingers. I put away the needles and asked thoughtfully, does the general's residence have any stronger bedsheets in storage? He looked at his hand, then at me. Did you do that deliberately? How can husband and wife suspect each other so easily? My expression was perfectly sincere. I was merely concerned about the household's consumption of fabric. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he gave a low laugh. It was like the first thaw of a frozen river. For a moment, I could only stare. This man's smile was far too dangerous. No wonder Princess Anyang had forgotten every previous humiliation and still wanted to chew on this particular blade of grass. Unfortunately for her, that grass was now planted in my flower pot. Anyone who who tried to take a bite would lose her teeth. After the treatment, Pei Zhai drew a contract from beneath the pillow. This is the record of the Pei family's private property. From today onward, you will manage it. I took it and glanced over the contents. 17 estates, 23 shops, 3 country residences outside the capital, several silver vaults. The abacus in my mind began clattering loudly. This was not a husband. This was a mountain of gold that could walk, fight wars, and voluntarily surrender its keys. You are not afraid. I will empty the Pei family's treasury. If you wish to move it, I will summon the carriages for you. I looked up. He was completely serious. Chang Ying, I did not marry you for children. Whether you cure me or not, you will be the only woman in my life. I blinked. Something struck gently against my heart. This man could go half a day without producing 3 sentences, yet when he finally spoke, every word landed directly where it hurt. I was about to answer when I caught the faintest bitter, cold scent. It came from the salve on the table, the medicine Pei Zhai used every day. I walked over, lifted a small amount of the ointment, and held it near the candle. Aconite, borneol, angelica root, and beneath the stronger medicinal scents, Snowridge vine. In small quantities, it eased pain. Used over a long period, it obstructed the flow of blood and vital energy, leaving the kidney meridian cold and weak. The smile slowly disappeared from my face. Pei Zhai. Yes. You were not injured so badly that you could never father children. I looked at the ointment on my fingertip and gave a cold laugh. Someone has been trying to make certain you never do. The next morning, I carried the salve into the palace. Pei Zhai wanted to investigate quietly first. I refused. A secret investigation would certainly have been cautious. But when an enemy had already delivered his face into my hand, failing to slap it in public would be an insult to the effort he had made in bringing it all the way to me. When Emperor Xiao Jingyao heard what had happened, he immediately summoned the physicians of the Imperial Medical Academy. He did more than summon them. He ordered eunuchs to place chairs, tea, and a plate of sliced melon in the chamber beside his imperial study. I took one look and understood. An emperor was still a man. If the spectacle was interesting enough, even the dragon throne could temporarily become a seat for watching a play. Du Zhongren entered with complete confidence. General Pei's injury was diagnosed by this official personally. There can be no mistake. Madame Gu may possess some knowledge of medicine, but she must not disturb His Majesty with an unfounded suspicion. I smiled. Physician Du is correct. He froze, clearly not expecting such cooperation. I continued. Since the salve is harmless, Physician Du should test it himself. His expression changed. This is medicine for an external wound. I have no wound. How could I test it? That is easily solved. I drew a silver needle from my case. I will seal 3 points in your arm and apply the ointment. If the cold poison does not enter your meridians within the time it takes an incense stick to burn, then I will accept that my diagnosis was wrong. I will apologize to you before everyone here and never practice medicine again. Every expression in the chamber sharpened. Pei Zhai looked at me calmly and did not object. He knew I never wagered on matters about which I was uncertain. I could throw silver into water simply because the splash was pleasing. But I would never throw away my dignity. Retrieving it was far too troublesome. Du Zhongren had no path of retreat. He extended his arm. I inserted the needles, applied the medicine, and sealed the points in one smooth sequence. The emperor bit into a slice of melon. Since we must wait, Physician Du may as well explain why Pei Zhai cannot produce an heir. Du Zhongren wiped sweat from his forehead. The general suffered a serious injury to his waist and abdomen. His kidney meridian is weakened, and cold entered his body. Naturally, he would find it difficult to continue his bloodline. I added leisurely. The cold did not come from the wound. It was fed into him through the salve. Nonsense. The moment Du Jongren shouted, his arm jerked violently. The skin at his wrist began to turn blue. Cold spread upward through his veins. Before the incense stick had finished burning, his entire arm had stiffened so completely that he could no longer bend it. The slice of melon stopped halfway to the emperor's mouth. This is what you call harmless. Du Jongren dropped to his knees. Your Majesty, this official does not know why the medicine has produced such an effect. You wrote the prescription, yet you do not know. I crouched before him and smiled gently. Physician Du, you have practiced medicine for many years. Surely, you do not need to ask other people where your own wind came from after you have released it. Page coughed. I suspected his throat was perfectly healthy. He was suppressing laughter. Du Jongren's lips turned white. Perhaps the dispensary used the wrong herb. Is that so? I do not believe you. I clapped my hands toward the doors. The pay guards brought in a young apprentice. The moment the apprentice saw Du Jongren, he fell to his knees and begged for mercy. He pulled a thin account book from inside his robe. Mercy, Your Majesty. Physician Du ordered me to add Snow Ridge Vine to General Pay's medicine every time it was prepared. Lord Zhao of the Ministry of War sent 500 taels of silver each month. I received only 20. It is not worth dying for them. I looked at the apprentice with renewed interest. He might have been greedy, but his ability to calculate had returned at a crucial moment. 20 taels were not worth dying for. 500 might have been. His professional standards were impressively clear. The emperor opened the account book. His face darkened completely. Zhao Chengwu's name was written throughout it. He had bribed an imperial physician and arranged for Pei Zhai to use cold poison over many years. First, they would spread the belief that the Pei family would have no heir. Then they would argue that a childless house should not command military power indefinitely. It was a clever arrangement. Unfortunately, the men playing the game had kept their eyes fixed on the general. They had never imagined that I might suddenly sit down beside the board. I had one particular habit when playing games. I disliked following other people's rules. When pressed too far, I preferred to overturn the board and strike them with it. The emperor ordered Zhao Chengwu's immediate arrest and the seizure of Du Jongren's estate. Du Jongren remained on his knees, pleading desperately. Madame Gu, please release the points in this old man's arm. I rose and straightened my sleeves. Why are you in such a hurry? You said the medicine was harmless. Spend a little longer experiencing it. It may broaden your medical knowledge. His face was so pale that he seemed close to tears. I felt as refreshed as if I had drunk an entire bowl of iced sour plum soup at the height of summer. When villains stood proudly, they could look almost human. Once they fell to their knees, they resembled nothing more than a heap of freshly kneaded dough. As Pei Zhai and I walked side by side along the palace road, he asked, You had already sent people to find the apprentice. Last night. What if he had fled? He would not. Why? I turned toward him. Because I had someone tell him that Du Jongren planned to silence him permanently. If he possessed even half a brain, he would know whose protection gave him the better chance of remaining alive. Pei Zhai was silent for a while. Changying. Yes. In the future, if someone offends you, I will remind him to write his will early. I laughed. Excellent. My husband was gradually mastering the essence of living with me. Never ask whether I intend to take revenge. Ask only where I would like the body buried. After Zhao Chengwu's estate was seized, the cold poison gradually left Pei Zhai's body. 3 months later, his pulse had recovered by more than half. Du Jongren was stripped of his office and imprisoned. On his first day in the cells, he continued to insist that he had not misdiagnosed anything. On the second day, the emperor sent him the complete medical record I had compiled. On the third day, Du Jongren requested permission to amend his statement. He claimed that his judgment had merely contained a minor deviation. I was deeply impressed. He had declared that a man would never produce an heir, yet called it a minor deviation. By that standard, if he diagnosed a dead man as living, the fault would lie with the patient for not cooperating enthusiastically enough. When summer came, the Empress held a lotus-viewing banquet in the palace. Gu Qingwen attended. She had become engaged to the son of a vice minister in the Ministry of Rights. Dressed in expensive robes, she greeted me with an expression of concern. Sister has been married into the Pei family for several months. Why has there still been no good news? I was lifting a piece of honeyed lotus root. I glanced at her. Some people lived such dull lives that they carried lanterns around, hopping to shine them beneath other people's beds. I slowly ate the lotus root. Since Sister is so concerned, perhaps you should sleep outside the general's residence tonight and measure the time personally. Her face reddened. How can you say something so shameless? You have already pressed your ear against my bedroom door. I feared you would not understand unless I spoke clearly. The surrounding ladies lowered their heads and drank tea. Judging from their shaking shoulders, the palace tea must have been unusually hot that day. Gu Qingwen bit her lip. I am merely afraid that Sister will regret this in the future. Even if General Pei's wounds have healed, he may not truly be able to. Madame Gu. Pei Zheai's voice came from behind me. Gu Qingwen's face turned white. He walked to my side and looked at her coldly. Whether I am able is none of your concern. I nearly choked on my tea. Pei Zheai rarely spoke, but whenever he did, he had an extraordinary talent for throwing people directly into the deepest possible pit of embarrassment. Gu Qingwen hurriedly bowed and left. I looked up at him. Why are you here? His Majesty summoned me. His gaze fell upon the honeyed lotus root before me. You have eaten very little. The weather is hot. I have no appetite. He frowned and raised a hand to summon an imperial physician. I stopped him. I am a physician. Then I paused. Recently, I had indeed lost my appetite. The smell of oily food made me nauseated. I had also been sleeping far more than usual in the mornings. I had assumed it was the summer heat. But now that I considered it carefully, I rested my fingers against my wrist. The pulse beneath them was smooth and rolling, like pearls moving across a jade plate. I blinked. Then I examined it again. Pei Zheai immediately became tense. What is wrong? Pei Zheai. I am here. You may be about to become a father. His entire body froze. He was stiffer than he had been the first time I treated him with needles. The Empress immediately summoned 3 imperial physicians. Each examined my pulse in turn. Their expressions became increasingly remarkable. Congratulations, General. Madame Pei has been with child for nearly 2 months. The hall was silent for a heartbeat. Then it erupted. Gu Qingwen, who had not yet gone far, slipped and nearly walked into a pillar. I watched her clutch the pillar and felt considerable satisfaction. The pillar was stable. The person was not. When the Emperor heard the news, he hurried in. His first question was, how many? The physicians looked troubled. It is still early, Your Majesty. We can confirm only that she is with child. The Emperor seemed disappointed. The Imperial Medical Academy once said there would not be even one. Surely it is reasonable for us to ask whether there might now be several. Pei Zheai did not speak. Only after we had left the palace and entered our carriage did he carefully place his hand over my still flat abdomen. Is it truly real? I raised an eyebrow. 3 physicians have already examined me. You still do not believe it. It is not disbelief. His voice was slightly hoarse. It simply feels like a dream. I studied him. You wanted a child very badly. He was silent for a moment, then shook his head. I am happy, but not because the Pei family will have an heir. Then why? Because this is your child and mine. He looked directly at me. The intensity of his gaze warmed my heart. This man spoke so rarely. Yet every sentence was fatal. They were like arrows. He aimed, every one of them, directly at my heart. After we returned home, I changed completely. When I drank water, he inspected the cup first. When I ate, he questioned the cook. If I walked 3 steps, he asked whether I was tired. On the 4th day, he ordered the entire stone path in our courtyard covered with thick carpets. I stared at the soft ground for a long time. I am with child. I have not turned into a sugar figurine that will shatter if touched. The ground is slippery. It is midsummer. There is not a single drop of water. It may rain tomorrow. I looked up at the cloudless sky. Love made people blind. It also made great generals speak nonsense. Yet while the entire Pei residence celebrated, a rumor suddenly began circulating in the capital. Someone claimed that I had conceived less than a month after my marriage, and that the child's origins were questionable. The first person to spread the accusation was my elder sister, whose interest in my bedroom had always been unusually passionate. I touched my abdomen, which had not yet begun to show, and smiled. Apparently, Gu Qingwen had not lost enough face the last time. She had returned to continue her education. Such dedication deserved encouragement. On the 3rd day after the rumor began, the Duke of Dingguo's residence held a family banquet. I attended deliberately. I did not go alone. I brought Pei Zhai, a senior palace lady serving the empress, and 3 experienced midwives known throughout the capital for calculating delivery dates. The moment Gu Qingwen saw the group, her smile stiffened. Sister is merely returning to her maiden home. Why have you brought so many people? I heard that you have recently shown great concern for the date of my delivery. I feared you could not calculate it alone, so I brought several teachers. I gave her a gentle smile. She took half a step backward. Whenever I smiled like that, people who knew me well usually began searching for the nearest exit. Unfortunately, she had never understood me deeply enough. The banquet had only just begun when Gu Qingwen brought up my pregnancy. Sister has been married for less than 4 months, yet her child is said to be almost 3 months along. The timing seems remarkably convenient. Father slammed down his wine cup. All 3 of my brothers turned toward her. I calmly put down his chopsticks. I knew that the calmer he appeared, the more strongly he wanted to draw his sword. I patted the back of his hand. This was an academic discussion between sisters. Bringing out a blade would make it appear that we were bullying her. I ordered servants to bring an abacus and an almanac. Since sister has raised a question, please calculate the dates before everyone. Gu Qingwen gritted her teeth. Very well. She began with the date of my wedding and counted forward according to the traditional 10 months of pregnancy. After a great deal of calculation, she pointed at the almanac. If sister's child is born at full term, the delivery should occur no earlier than next June. Yet according to the imperial physicians, the expected date is in April. 2 entire months are missing. I blinked. Everyone else blinked. At last, the eldest midwife could bear it no longer. Eldest Miss Gu, the traditional 10 months of pregnancy are calculated in periods of 28 days. They are not 10 complete calendar months. Gu Qingwen froze. The second midwife continued. Furthermore, the stage of Madame Pei's pregnancy is calculated from her last monthly cycle, not from the night the marriage was consummated. The third midwife lowered her head and counted. According to eldest Miss Gu's method, an infant would need to remain inside its mother for a full 12 months. The hall was silent for one brief moment. My second brother laughed first. Then the entire gathering erupted. I lifted my teacup and took a slow sip. So sister did not truly doubt my child. You merely wish to establish an entirely new calendar for human pregnancy. Gu Qingwen's face turned bright red. I only miscalculated. Miscalculation is not frightening. I put down my cup. But when you know nothing and still spread accusations everywhere, ruining my name, insulting my husband, and slandering the Pei bloodline, that is no longer a mistake in arithmetic. It is a defect of character. Pei Zhai spoke in an even voice. The Pei family has already delivered the witnesses and their testimony to the capital magistrate. Gu Qingwen jerked her head up. You intend to bring charges against me. What else should we do? I looked genuinely confused. Surely sister did not believe that spreading lies came without a bill. Even storytellers at the market collect tea money when they invent tales. You have performed such an elaborate drama. Naturally, you must pay something for it. In the end, Gu Qingwen was ordered to apologize publicly and donate 3,000 taels of silver to the capital's foundling home. From that day onward, she acquired a glorious new title. Gu 12 months. It was said that whenever she went outside, even the vegetable sellers greeted her warmly. Miss Gu, are we counting today's date by 10 months or 12? 6 months later, I safely gave birth to a son. When the child's cries came from the delivery room, Pei Zhai stood outside with a face as white as though he had just lost a war. When I was helped out, the first person he looked at was not the child. It was me. Did it hurt? Yes. Pain flashed through his eyes. I added, so if he becomes unfilial in the future, you will be responsible for beating him. Pei Zhai nodded with great seriousness. The infant in his swaddling clothes seemed to understand. He immediately began to howl. I was extremely pleased. He might have been young, but his awareness of danger was already excellent. Less than half a day after the birth, Father and my 3 brothers charged into the general's residence. Father held his grandson and refused to let go. My eldest brother argued that, as the eldest maternal uncle, he should hold the baby first. My second brother declared that he had brought a golden lock, so gift givers deserved priority. My third brother was the most shameless of all. While everyone else argued, he simply snatched the child away. That night, the 4 of them created a baby-holding schedule and pasted it beside the cradle. Pei Zhai stared at it for a long time without saying anything. The next morning, the schedule had disappeared. I noticed a speck of paper ash on his sleeve that he had failed to brush away and fell into deep thought. The renowned general guarding the northern frontier had secretly burned a document jointly drafted by his father-in-law and 3 brothers-in-law. If the matter became known, the Pei family's generations of military glory might develop a small crack. I decided to protect his secret. That night, he sat beside the bed, watching the sleeping child and me. Chang Ying, he said softly. Yes. I love you. I opened my eyes. He clearly had not expected me to still be awake. His expression stiffened for a moment. I deliberately asked, You love only me, you do not love your son. The little bundle beside us moved. Pei Zhai was silent for a moment. He ranks after you. I laughed so hard that tears nearly came to my eyes. My dear child, it was not that your mother refused to fight for you. Your father had fixed the ranking from the very beginning. 2 years later, I found another joyful pulse beneath my fingers. This time, it was even stronger and smoother than before. I held my wrist and remained silent for a long while. Pei Zhai immediately grew nervous. What is it? I looked up at him. This time, there may be more than one. His face began to turn white again. During my second pregnancy, Pei Zhai's anxiety doubled. The contents of my belly had doubled as well. At 5 months, the physicians confirmed that I carried twins. When the news reached the Imperial Medical Academy, 2 elderly physicians reportedly fell into profound thought. One murmured, from being unable to produce a single heir to producing 2 at once. Did General Pei recover too thoroughly, or was Du Zhongren completely blind? The other replied, "Say less. If the general's household continues like this, we may need to bow to Madame Pei before examining her." I remained very modest when I heard. There was no need to bow. They could simply charge double the consultation fee. However, shortly before I was due to give birth, someone at court revived the old accusation. A former subordinate of Zhao Chongwu submitted a memorial. He claimed that since the diagnosis of infertility had been false, Pei Zhai might have deceived the emperor. Perhaps he had always known he was healthy and had merely used his injury to gain sympathy. After hearing the contents, I could only assume that the official's head contained a vast and empty meadow. If Pei Zhai had known he was unharmed, why would he have applied cold poison to his wound every day? Had he been so bored that he wanted to marinate himself? Before I could speak, Pei Zhai submitted every record of his medication, Du Zhongren's confession, the Ministry of War's purchase ledgers, and the military documents describing his original injuries. I added the monthly pulse records I had kept, including the exact dates on which his blood flow improved and the cold poison began to fade. The official knelt in the imperial hall, sweat pouring down his forehead. The emperor finished reading the evidence and smiled coldly. "You accuse Pei Zhai of deceiving the throne. What evidence do you possess?" This official merely raised a reasonable suspicion. I could not resist. "By that standard, I also reasonably suspect that Your Excellency came to court this morning without bringing your brain." The emperor lowered his head and coughed. I suspected he was suppressing laughter again. The official's face reddened. "Madame Gu, how dare you speak nonsense in the imperial court?" I touched my swollen belly. "I am merely following Your Excellency's method and raising a reasonable suspicion. What is wrong? Are you permitted to suspect everyone else, while no one may suspect you? Does reason in your household get distributed according to official rank?" Pei Zhai stood beside me. "She is correct." In the end, the emperor discovered that the official had accepted silver from the Zhao family. He was stripped of office and investigated. After that, no one dared to use Pei Zhai's old wound against him again. They had not suddenly developed consciences. They had merely realized that opposing Pei Zhai might still leave them with an intact corpse. Opposing me could result in their names being carved into the capital's collection of jokes and repeated at dinner tables for the next several decades. 1 month later, I gave birth to twin boys. When the midwife announced the news, father laughed loudly. Then he lowered his voice and asked, "Still no granddaughter?" I was lying in the bedchamber and heard every word. Excellent. His 3 grandsons were still wrapped in swaddling cloths, yet he had already begun resenting them for their inability to wear little braids. The first time, Pei Zhai held both infants at once. His body became as rigid as a human weapons rack. The child in his left arm cried, so he looked left. The child in his right arm whimpered, so he looked right. When both began crying together, sweat appeared on his forehead for the first time. I leaned against the headboard and watched for a while. "Great General, you can command 300,000 soldiers on the northern frontier, but you cannot manage 2 bobbies." His expression was grave. Soldiers do not suddenly spit milk. The moment the words left his mouth, the child in his left arm obediently spat across his shoulder. I laughed so hard that I nearly rolled off the bed. Pei Zhai lowered his head and studied the milk stain for a long time. I expected him to summon the nurses. Instead, he calmly changed the cloth and continued holding the baby. "You are not disgusted. He is my son." He paused and looked at me. "You gave birth to him." This man possessed an extraordinary ability to say something that softened my heart at the exact moment he looked most miserable. I reached out and wiped the milk from his collar. "Pei Zhai." "Yes. You look like a tree struck by bird droppings." He closed his eyes. "Very good. My soft heart lasted only a moment. The relationship between husband and wife had returned to its healthy and stable state of mutual injury. When the twins were 2, I became pregnant for the 3rd time. Once the news spread, gambling houses in the capital secretly opened wagers. Boy or girl? 10 to 1. Father secretly sent someone to wager 5,000 taels on a girl. Each of my 3 brothers bet 3,000. The emperor was even more excessive. He ordered a eunuch to use 10,000 taels of his private silver to wager on a little girl. Only Pigsty refused to bet. I asked him why. He touched my hair. A son or a daughter would both be good. I was deeply moved, as expected of the man I had chosen. His understanding was far superior to everyone else. Then he added, a daughter would be better. Without expression, I slapped his hand away. A man's words could indeed be trusted. Only the first half of them. 10 months later, I delivered a round, healthy son. The moment the midwife announced the birth, cheers erupted outside. Then came a peculiar silence. Father recovered first. A son is good. A son can learn the saber. My 3rd brother followed immediately. Exactly, 4 nephews can form a small squad. My 2nd brother said, sons save money on jewelry. My eldest brother glared at him. Does the Duke of Dinguo's residence lack money for jewelry? Everyone began cheering again. Their smiles merely carried the faint strength of men who had lost every coin they had wagered. When the emperor received the news, he was silent for a long time. Then he said, Pygsty's foundation has recovered rather too fundamentally. During my confinement after childbirth, Princess Enyang returned to the capital from her fief. She had apparently heard that Pigsty could not only father children, but had produced 4 of them in quick succession. Her old affection suddenly came back to life. At a palace banquet, she carried a cup of wine to him. General, after so many years, your bearing remains as distinguished as ever. Pigsty looked at her. Who are you? I was drinking soup and nearly sprayed it across the table. Princess Enyang's face stiffened. I am Enyang. I do not remember. She gritted her teeth. Before you went to war, I personally gave you a protective charm. Pigsty finally seemed to recall it. The one that lost its color. Princess Enyang's face turned green. I lowered my head and bit my lip. I could not laugh. At least I could not laugh so hard that I crawled beneath the table in front of the emperor. It would damage the dignity of the general's wife. Princess Enyang turned toward me with a sneer. Madame Gu has given birth 3 times. Are you not afraid of damaging your health? For once, the question struck the heart of the matter. After my 3rd pregnancy, Pigsty had made it clear that he wanted no more children. It was not because he disliked having so many. He was worried that childbirth would exhaust or endanger me. That night, he personally carried in a contraceptive tonic. I smelled it. The herbs were mild, and the prescription was appropriate. You no longer want a daughter. I do. He looked at me. But I want you safe more. I gazed at him. Candlelight fell over the scar near his brow and softened the severe lines of his face. Before our marriage, everyone had said his foundation was ruined and that no woman would want him. Yet the man despised for being unable to continue his bloodline had never truly cared most about heirs. He cared whether I would hurt, whether I would grow tired, whether I might be in danger. I lifted the medicine and drank. It was so bitter that my entire face twisted. Candied fruit. He immediately handed me one. I put it in my mouth, but was still dissatisfied. Another. He fed me a second. Looking at his face, so close to mine, I suddenly leaned forward and kissed him. He froze. The tips of his ears turned red at once. We had been married for so many years, yet he remained so easy to tease. I was extremely satisfied. Time might pass, but some beginnings never changed. 2 years later, I unexpectedly became pregnant again. The contraceptive tonic had not failed. A certain great general had simply returned from campaign one night and, in his excitement, forgotten to drink it. When I diagnosed the joyful pulse, I remained silent for the entire length of one incense stick. It is my fault. Who else should I blame? The man next door. He took my hand. After this, child, I will never allow you to suffer again. I was about to answer when an imperial decree arrived, ordering me to enter the palace immediately. Princess Anyang had carried a box of supposedly poisonous pregnancy-stabilizing pills before the emperor and accused me of wrongdoing. She claimed I had harmed people with medicine and that 3 noblewomen had suffered severe abdominal pain after taking my pills. I looked at the eunuch delivering the decree and smiled. Princess Anyang had apparently decided that her previous falls had lacked elegance. She wished to throw herself down from another angle. In that case, I would kindly smooth the ground for her. When I entered the palace, Princess Anyang was kneeling in the hall and weeping. A box of pills sat on the table. The moment she saw me, she pointed toward them. These are the pregnancy pills prepared by Gu Changying. Every lady who took them suffered unbearable pain. She is clearly attempting to murder children of the imperial clan. I lifted one pill and smelled it. The surface was sealed with the honeyed wax I commonly used. The contents, however, had been replaced with croton seed, immature bitter orange, and a small amount of rhubarb. It was a remarkably powerful tool for emptying one's bowels. A healthy person who swallowed a single pill would gain a profound understanding of the meaning of moving like the wind before half a day had passed. Princess Anyang had secretly copied my medicine in order to frame me. Unfortunately, she did not know that I mixed a different flower pollen into the wax of every batch. The palace batch had used white plum pollen. The pills she brought contained peach blossom pollen. I handed the pill to an imperial physician. Examine the wax seal. He inspected it carefully and soon reported, Your Majesty, the pills registered by Madame Gu contain white plum pollen. This pill is sealed with peach blossom pollen. They do not belong to the same batch. Princess Anyang's face changed. She could have falsified the register. I smiled at her. Your Highness says the medicine was found in your own residence and insists that I prepared it with my own hands. Of course. In that case, Your Highness must believe it is safe. She looked at me warily. What are you planning? I pushed the box toward her. Please. Every eye in the hall turned toward her. Princess Anyang found herself trapped. If she refused to eat them, she would prove that she herself did not believe they were my medicine. If she ate them, I calculated quietly. Given her build, 2 would be sufficient. 3 would allow her to run with considerably greater force. Princess Anyang gritted her teeth and swallowed 3 pills at once. Very well, I will eat them. Let us see how you continue to deny your crime. I regarded her with solemn respect. A warrior. A true warrior dared to confront her own bowels. Before half an incense stick had burned, her expression changed. She clutched her stomach, and cold sweat appeared at her temples. The emperor asked, What is wrong with the princess? I only feel a little. Before she could finish, she lifted her skirts and ran from the hall. She moved so quickly that a breeze followed her. The first time she returned, she could still maintain some dignity. After the second, her hair had become crooked. On the third, one of her jeweled pins disappeared. On the fourth, she threw away her silk stole. On the fifth, the emperor ordered every door along the route to the privy opened for her. By the eighth, no one in the hall dared to speak. It was not out of sympathy. Everyone feared that the moment they opened their mouths, they would laugh. 10,000 wild beasts stampeded through my mind for 800 miles while setting off firecrackers. At last, one of Princess Anyang's maids could no longer endure the pressure. She knelt and confessed everything. The princess had ordered servants to copy the pills. The 3 supposedly suffering noblewomen had been bribed. The emperor's face turned iron gray. He immediately sent Princess Anyang back to her fief and forbade her from entering the capital without a summons. After she left, the people of her fief heard what had happened in the palace and built an 8-sided pavilion beside the main road. Some talented soul named it the 8-step pavilion. Whenever anyone ate something that upset the stomach, they went there to sit. It was said to work remarkably well. After Princess Anyang's matter was settled, my delivery began. The birth went smoothly. When the midwife shouted, "It is a daughter," a roar of celebration shook the courtyard outside. It did not sound as though a baby had been born. It sounded like news of a great northern victory, combined with the looting of an enemy palace. When Pigsty carried our daughter into the room, his eyes were slightly red. I leaned against the headboard and looked at him. "Were you crying?" "No." "Your eyes are red." "There is a great deal of wind in this room." I looked toward the tightly closed windows. What powerful wind! It had selected only the great northern general as its victim. Our daughter was pale and soft. Her tiny hand closed around one of his fingers, and Pigsty stopped moving altogether. I had never seen him so careful. He held her as though she were not a child, but a handful of snow that might melt if he breathed too heavily. "Have you chosen a name?" I asked. Pigsty had prepared 17. Father had prepared 21. My 3 brothers had prepared 40 between them. The emperor had even ordered the Hanlin Academy to produce 120 auspicious characters. They argued for 3 days, and no one would yield. At last, I placed the papers bearing the names on a table and let my 3-year-old son draw one. He grabbed 2 and stuffed them into his mouth. I was silent. "Excellent." The child handled problems very much like his father. When uncertain, destroy the evidence. The last remaining paper carried the name Mingzhu, bright pearl. I glanced at Pigsty. "Then let us call her Pei Mingzhu." He looked down at our daughter. "Good." For many years afterward, whenever Princess Anyang heard the word pearl, she presumably remembered her glorious sprint through the imperial palace. That, too, was a form of immortality. On Mingzhu's 1-month celebration, the emperor came in person. He arrived in the inner courtyard with an imperial golden lock, clearly in high spirits. Then he saw the long line before the cradle. "Pigsty." "Father." "My eldest brother." "My second brother." "My third brother." Each man held a wooden token. The emperor stood at the end of the line and fell into a long silence. He stared at the 5 tokens. "We must wait in line, merely to hold the child." Father straightened his back. "Your Majesty, all things must follow the order of arrival." My eldest brother nodded. "Father holds her first today, followed by the 3 maternal uncles." Pigsty added coldly, "I am last." The emperor looked at him in disbelief. "She is your child, yet you stand behind your father-in-law and brothers-in-law." "That is today's schedule." I sat to one side drinking tea and quietly turned my eyes away. Father had designed the schedule. Pigsty had once attempted to burn it in the middle of the night. Father had learned from the earlier incident and made 20 copies. They were hidden throughout the Duke of Dingguo's residence, the homes of my 3 brothers, the accounts office of the general's residence, and even the censorate inside the palace. It was said that one had been pushed behind an ancestral tablet in the family shrine. Pigsty searched for 2 nights and was eventually forced to accept his fate. The emperor drew an imperial gold plaque from his sleeve. "We possess an imperial token. May we be given priority." Father also took a wooden plaque from his robe. Several crooked characters were written on it. "Maternal grandfather comes first." I had written them personally. The emperor looked at me. I lowered my head and drank tea. Do not look at me. On one side sat the ruler of the realm. On the other stood my own father. At such a moment, pretending to be deaf was the wisest possible course. Pei held our daughter and said without expression, "Your Majesty, cutting in line is unworthy of an enlightened ruler." The emperor laughed in anger. "Does your entire family believe we dare not punish you?" Father laughed heartily. "Your Majesty is wise and benevolent. Naturally, you would never quarrel with a child who has only just completed her first month." The flattering crown landed perfectly. If the emperor became angry, he would appear neither wise nor benevolent. If he remained calm, he had no choice but to stand in line. Father had spent years fighting wars and had finally applied military strategy to competing for his granddaughter. It was deeply admirable. The emperor waited nearly half an hour at the end of the line. When his turn finally arrived, Pei placed Mingzhu in his arms and never took his eyes from her. The emperor had held her for less than the time needed to drink half a cup of tea when she yawned. Pei immediately reached out. "She is tired. She appears perfectly awake to us." Mingzhu moved again. Pei became even more solemn. "She wants to come back." The emperor looked down at the little girl, who was happily playing with his jade pendant. "How can you possibly tell that she wishes to return? A father and daughter share one heart." I nearly laughed aloud. I had never known those words could be used in such a manner. The emperor held the child for less than one incense stick before Pei took her back. Before leaving, the emperor angrily announced that the 5th day of every month would henceforth be the imperial holding day. He ordered it formally entered into the palace records. Pei agreed. On the 5th day of the next month, he put Mingzhu to sleep half an hour early. The following month, Father took her to the Duke of Dingguo's residence. In the 3rd month, my 3rd brother carried her outside the city to see the flowers. After arriving in vain 3 times, the emperor finally sent a eunuch to wait at the general's residence 1 full day in advance. The story spread throughout the capital. The people sighed in admiration. The Pei family's daughter was indeed precious. Even the Son of Heaven needed to consult the calendar before attempting to hold her. As for those who had once waited to see me humiliated, each received an appropriate ending. After Du Zhongren confessed in prison, he was sentenced to compile 100 volumes of records of misdiagnosis. Every morning, he stood outside the Imperial Medical Academy and read his own errors aloud. Whenever he reached the sentence, this official once declared that General Pei would remain childless for life. The passing citizens shouted in unison. He has 5 children from 4 pregnancies now. It was said that Du Zhongren eventually began trembling whenever he heard an infant cry. Whether that counted as a physician's compassion, I did not know. It certainly sounded like retribution reaching his ears. Zhao Changwu was exiled to the northern frontier to raise horses. Pei Zhai's former soldiers deliberately assigned him a black stallion with a terrible temper. The horse despised the hats on Zhao Changwu's head and kicked them away whenever it saw them. Within 6 months, 17 hats had been sent flying. The northern military camp even opened a wager on how many days his next hat would survive. Business flourished. Princess Anyang never returned to the capital. She ordered the 8-step pavilion destroyed. The people rebuilt it overnight. The second pavilion was larger and possessed 8 exits. I was extremely pleased when I heard. The wisdom of ordinary people should never be underestimated. As for Gu Qingwen, her engagement was broken after the rumors she spread against me. She felt no remorse. Later, she secretly sent people to the general's residence to plead on her behalf. She claimed that ending the engagement years earlier had been a moment of confusion. Out of respect for the marriage originally arranged by the late emperor, she hoped the Pei family might grant her a position as a concubine. After hearing this, I ordered servants to retrieve the letter in which she had personally renounced the engagement. Pei Zheai had it mounted and hung beside the main gate of the general's residence. Beneath it, he placed a line of large characters. I ended the engagement of my own free will and will never regret it. When Gu Qingwen arrived in her carriage, she saw her own handwriting at once. The gathered citizens saw her as well. She did not dare lift the curtain. Her carriage turned around and left. After she repeatedly attempted to scheme against members of noble households, father sent her to the family temple to reflect. Every day, she copied the lessons for women. The elderly matron, guarding her, possessed an excellent temper. Whenever Gu Qingwen completed a copy of the passage warning women to guard their speech, the matron smiled and asked, "Eldest miss, have you remembered it today?" If she did not answer, she copied it 10 more times. Whenever I thought of her, I felt nothing. I did not hate her. Hatred required far too much effort. I only needed to ensure that whenever she attempted to step on me, her foot landed accurately in a pit I had prepared in advance. That was enough. Years passed, and our 4 sons gradually grew. Our eldest was calm and steady, very much like Pei Zheai. Of the twins, one loved practicing with sabers. The other loved taking sabers apart. Our 3rd son possessed an extraordinary talent. At the age of 3, he dismantled the golden lock bestowed by the emperor and exchanged the pieces with the kitchen for sweets. I stared at the scattered fragments of gold for a long time. It would be a terrible waste if this child did not become a merchant. Mingzhu, meanwhile, had been the heart of the family since birth. When she was 5, the emperor asked whom she loved most. She counted on her fingers for a long time. "I love mother most, then father, grandfather, eldest uncle, second uncle, third uncle, and my 4 brothers." The emperor waited. "And us?" Mingzhu tilted her head and thought. "You come after eunuch Zhang in the imperial kitchen." The emperor was deeply wounded. Eunuch Zhang sent 2 boxes of newly made osmanthus sweets to the general's residence that very night. I stroked my daughter's hair with great pride. At such a young age, she already understood that whoever controlled the sweets controlled the human heart. She was indeed my child. That night, after all the children had fallen asleep, Pei Zheai and I sat upon the roof and looked at the moon. He draped a robe over my shoulders. "Are you cold?" "No." "Were you tired today?" "A little." He began massaging my shoulders. Years had passed. Faint lines now touched the corners of his eyes, but the scar near his brow remained exactly as it had been when I first met him. I leaned against his shoulder. "Pei Zheai." "Yes." "When my sister ended the engagement all those years ago, were you deeply hurt?" He thought about it. "No." "Truly?" "I barely knew her." He lowered his gaze to me. I was only grateful that she withdrew quickly enough. "Why?" "One day later, and I might have missed you." Warmth rushed into my heart, but I refused to surrender so easily. General Pei has become increasingly skilled with pleasant words. Have you secretly found a teacher? No. Then you must possess a natural gift. He laughed and drew me into his arms. My wife taught me well. A child's cry suddenly sounded in the distance. Immediately afterward, the doors to our 4 sons' rooms opened one after another. Little sister is awake. I will hold her. It is my turn today. Pei Zheai's expression changed. He leaped down from the roof. No one is permitted to touch her. I remained seated above, watching the mighty general of the northern frontier run faster to seize his daughter than he ever had while pursuing enemy soldiers. At last, I laughed until tears filled my eyes. Everyone in the capital said that Pei Zheai had spent his life killing decisively and feared nothing. In truth, there were many things he feared. He feared my anger. He feared that bitter medicine would make me refuse the candied fruit afterward. He feared our sons would cause trouble and leave me worried. Most of all, he feared that someone else might hold his daughter for too long. As for me, my life had unfolded exactly as my name promised. I had never lost. Some said I possessed remarkable judgment because I chose Pei Zhai when everyone else had abandoned him. Others said Pei Zhai was fortunate because he married a woman who cured his wounds, cleared his name, and filled his residence with laughter. I believed the finest marriage in the world was never about one person saving the other. I dared to choose him. He never gave me reason to regret it. As for another pregnancy, there would be none. The great general now personally inspected the contraceptive medicine 3 times before bed every night. His precision rivaled the inspection of the northern defenses. 4 pregnancies and 5 children had already made the general's residence sound like an army training from dawn until dusk. If another child arrived, the emperor might truly issue a decree ordering the Pei estate to be expanded. As for me, Gu Changying, I continued eating cakes, practicing medicine, and managing the accounts. Occasionally, I took my husband and children with me to correct the behavior of someone who lacked proper eyesight. Many years later, a saying still circulated throughout the capital. It was better to oppose the great northern general in the imperial court than to offend Madame Pei at a banquet. The former might earn you a beating. The latter would not only bring disaster. You might also find yourself written into a storyteller's performance, so that people would laugh at you for the next 100 years. That woman remained a legend.